And is there any way Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome, not to the patch notes, but to a special Q&A. We know you rarely get these. We don't like to do these at all.
Nope, hate them.
So we decided we'd give a great, just kind of open discourse about matchmaking here and kind of talk about some of these questions you've had on your mind, some of the things we wanted to respond to the community. My name is Randy. Of course, I am joined by the two designers here who are behind the scenes making things happen for Paladins. That is Rory, High-Res Driver, and of course, High-Res Martini.
How's it going, guys?
So, guys, welcome. You know, it's a Q&A. Usually we kind of do these a little bit more informally, but the topic is matchmaking. So I think I'm going to lead you guys off with a couple of questions. I got my peach snapple.
Wait, are you talking about, like, Like shipping, like matchmaking, or
Yeah, shipping.
Whoa.
Exactly.
Oh, is that what?
Like Lex and Pip. Exactly.
Do you have like some roses for us so we can start?
I don't have them, but
right.
Garrett,
No.
I thought brought them. I saw he.
Wait, so where's your better half, Pretty Hair?
You know what? He's not pretty here.
Is he keeping the home?
He's making a lovely dinner. You know, I will be ready to enjoy that as
All
well.
right.
He's a good cook,
Okay.
not just looks.
All right.
I'm telling you, he's
All
got
right.
skills as
High
well.
res pretty cook.
Skills in the kitchen, skills in the.
in the ranked queue.
So let's talk about. Yeah, he's a good couple. Let's say he's a good
That's right.
partner.
Yeah, there it is. Yep.
And so let's talk about the high end guys. Matchmaking is often a topic that people know about. It's on their mind. It's on the tongue. And some people understand, some people don't. Can you give us a high end kind of walkthrough of like the meat and bones, as you said earlier, how matchmaking kind of works and what's up with that?
So matchmaking is it's a very complex system, right? I mean, you're talking about, especially when we came from earlier systems, the ELO, the name that everyone always uses, actually came from a modification from a guy whose last name was ELO.
Oh, wow.
That started a way to kind of predict when two chess players would come together, who would win, right? And it actually started to become kind of pretty interesting from there. When we started, Tribes had it, Global Agenda had an early start of it. Then going into Smite and Paladins, we do have kind of an ongoing improvement system for the matchmaking, which is kind of based off modified true skill and some pieces in there. Now, obviously, the system will always try to make the best match it can, right? And that's always going to be the case. However, given how many people are online, how many people are your level, how many people are in your region, and currently queuing at that exact moment, there will be times where a match isn't exactly even, right? There will be an underdog.
Sure.
And then what will happen from there is the system will say, okay, well, it wasn't exactly even, it was a little bit off. So since you're an underdog, if you lose a little bit less. If you win, which you weren't predicted to win, you'll get a little bit more, right? So there's kind of that's the general gist of it.
Okay.
And there's kind of some different stipulations and rules in there based on preventing you from being in queue for too long. So at a certain point, it will kind of pop a match the best it can. Those kind of things. You're not sitting around waiting forever for a match, right? But it kind of goes from that for. But I think there's been a lot of kind of interesting feedback points from the added elements of matchmaking in Paladins based on the borders and the frames, those kind of things, and how that works. So that's what we're here to talk about.
Awesome. I mean, that's a great place to start about. I mean, one of the things that you did mention kind of caught my eye was the borders, right? The borders for not only champion characters and, looking at those things that just symbolize a certain level that you're at. Is there anything you're going to do looking to adjust that or how that's implemented in the future?
So looking at now, I think it's probably fair just to answer some questions on that front, but there is a split between where the borders come from. So you can get a border up to gold in casual right now.
Right.
And then in order to get past gold, you'll have to play ranked from there.
Got it.
And there'll also be kind of stipulations around whether you make it onto the scoreboard or the leaderboards for those characters. So some rules around that. So I think from that we have some ideas on how we can make that overall better. We think that
we can definitely improve.
Improving that, and that's kind of what this is for, really, for the feedback pieces there.
Right.
But putting a higher restriction on whether or not you can go onto the leaderboard, right? Do you need to have a certain amount of matches played to make sure that, because some people, the feedback we've received from competitive, even down to casual, is that, you play 10 games, you get 10-0, and then you stop playing.
Oh, yeah. You're the greatest EV ever.
You're just the best EV on
you get
there,
really
you're
lucky,
locked in.
and you look better than someone who's been playing hundreds, and it's like, come on, guys.
Yeah.
And so kind of putting in rules in there, we think, something probably around like 25 matches played is a good way to kind of limit the anomalies, right? Because if you go 25-0, okay, right?
Respect.
You kind of did it, right? Good job on that front, right? Because it's kind of a piece on there. So
great. Okay. So I guess looking at this, I think part of the matchmaking conversation here is so on people's minds because of the fact that ranked is actually a very big part of this game and this community. We have a very, very big engagement rate.
Wait, we have competition?
I think there is a little bit.
Is there?
Slightly. I mean, I think there's.
Do you have like LANs going on? Or
I don't know if we have one. We might actually
is there any,
have.
Any stuff going on this weekend?
I mean, for masters,
solid plug.
there are. Yeah,
for
amateurs, you may not have gotten the invite. Sorry, man. But we do have the Masters lane happening right now.
I'll just disable all your accounts.
You got to teach me how to do that, by the way.
Absolutely not.
Because I need to know.
Rain Day can't have that power.
You get a ban.
That's right. You get a ban.
This guy sniped me. He flanked me in ranked. He's gone.
That's right, man. I'll be banning people for spraying after they kill me. Trust me.
Come on.
I would do it.
You know how many times I'd be banned then? Oh.
Gareth throwing shade here. So, okay. listen, we were talking about something important, guys. Stop throwing me off my train of thought here. Ranked is very important. We got a lot of players playing ranked. I think that's probably
a
what
disproportionately large amount, actually, compared to some other titles. Like, our players are very competitive, and we love it.
It matters.
We love it. Yeah.
It matters. So this is something you guys have been taking a lot of feedback in from all different types of sources, whether it's forums, whether it's the feedback forums, Reddit, stuff like that. So in terms of ranked, and is there any adjustments coming to that, like in terms of the rating, the how much you win or you lose per game, or what are the kind of thoughts you've put into in terms of that direction?
Yeah, we take a look at that. I think it's important to note, just kind of being transparent on that front. As I mentioned earlier, when the game starts, the matchmaking system will basically identify, five players on each team to kind of play together and make sure it's a good match. And then it'll identify, okay, is this an even match, or is there a slight disparity where one team is a little bit more intended to win, and that means that obviously if they win, they'll win. If they win, they win less because they were supposed to win, that kind of thing.
Right.
Paladins is unique in the fact that we actually do have champion rating. Right. And we actually use that champion rating to kind of factor in. So if you're playing a character for the first time, you're playing a character you're pretty low with, you're like, bronze and Nara or something like that. You hop in. Actually, that's impossible. You're playing like gold and Nara, right? Because you kind of hop into rank that way. The game would say, okay, well, here's the situation that you're in now, but you're playing a character that you're not as good with, so we'll kind of favor you further towards the underdog side individually.
Got it. Because
you're playing a character that you don't have a long history with or haven't shown that you're very good at.
Right.
Then they kind of grind it from that way. And so that system is in there now. Mm-hmm. The interesting part about that, though, is it does mean that there are more situations where you'll have an underdog, right? And that's kind of what we're seeing in Paladins. The feedback we're getting now is that, and that's kind of where the feedback we're receiving from players, where they feel that sometimes it's very small for a win or loss, and sometimes it's very large.
Larger swings and just inconsistent, like, general good feels.
Right.
Right. And that is that largely just because, hey, I didn't, I was already kind of expected to not really win this game, and I didn't win this game, and now it's like doubly unfortunate for me because I wasn't playing a champion I was as good at, and it feels like I just lost a lot.
Potentially, and also because of somehow, or sometimes like the draft will work out in a way that maybe you can't play the character that you intended to.
Yeah, that happens a lot for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's one of the...
You got to pick up a healer for your team.
Exactly. They're super dynamic. They want to win. So they're like, we need X. And they're like,
I'm not good at that.
I'm not good at that. Or it's higher rated and I haven't practiced it in a while, and depending on how the system works out, I may or may not be penalized or rewarded for it as well as I should be with the current champion system.
Right.
So yeah, we can definitely improve, I think.
Yeah. In that regard.
Yeah.
Any direction, Hal, yet, or are we saving that for a little bit later? Just if any ideas pop up, is that something you're actively have an idea for how you're gonna change
a lot of the
that
frustration is around kind of the inconsistency in terms of the amount of points I'm getting versus the amount of points I'm losing.
Right.
Sometimes it's a much larger swing than I expected because of the amount of variables. How many underdogs were on the enemy team versus how many like overdogs, I guess, were on my team.
Top dogs. Yeah.
And then how the mix kind of works out. And you're like, oh, well, the game didn't feel like I should have lost that much from every, or like, wow, I only won I won nothing. Great. And it was like that close or not close at all. But overall, we're shooting for more consistency and just a more rewarding experience.
Great. I mean, that seems like the goal here, and obviously looking to improve. Obviously, is the main theme of matchmaking, making it a better experience for every single person. There have been some questions. This isn't exactly matchmaking, but kind of goes into it. Resets. We've talked about that for ranked. You said that the community was kind of leaning towards wanting a hard reset.
Yeah.
Are we leaning towards that direction now officially, or still with the soft? We still weighing each option equally, or has one kind of started to seem like it's the way to go?
We're still leaning towards the hard, and I think that largely depends on the changes we end up making per patch, right? There will be a patch where the majority of the changes that we want to get in are in, and then we'll say, okay, that's a great starting point for everyone to kind of kick off again and reset that. And then there's a question of, do we want to do a reset for the champion ratings or not, right? Is that something that players would be excited to kind of get a fresh start on and start grinding up new champions, or did you get to Masters and feel like you don't really want to do it again for every character, those kind of things? So I think there's options that we can have there. But also at the highest level, I think the big things that we're considering now is one of the options on the table is to decouple the champion rating from your account rating, right? And so from that level, we would say, your account rating influences your champion rating, and basically the system will say, let's say you're a platinum player and you pick up playing Lex for the first time, right? It won't think that you're a bronze Lex.
Right.
It'll kind of get you in the right area. Like, okay, you're around platinum, maybe a little bit like on the lower end because you just started playing for the first time, and grind it for there. But kind of treat those separately. And then, when the match is made, and then at the end of the game when it determines how much rating to give you, there is an option where we could basically say that is pure account. Right, we ignore what champion we're playing. Doesn't even matter. You can play the best, the worst, whatever. It's all just based on your account and your placement and your relation to the match, your teammates and the opponents you had, and then just let champion kind of progress on its own. Right, it's almost like a secondary progress where you are making it better and better, getting up to master something on a champion, but it's just pure account and there's no interaction.
Right, so there's no interaction in terms of how it's placing you in games and how it's basically. Setting up your matches.
Right.
And it doesn't mean that it's then just something cosmetic. It still would imply how good of a champion, a player you are with that champion. You'd still be able to go from, platinum, the masters, the grandmasters, and have that be affected by your good or bad performances, but it just wouldn't be determining or be a part of the equation of, hey, what 10 players am I putting together for this match?
Well, so it doesn't do that, right? Because it only happens at the end. So I think it's important to note that the match is always made based on players.
Got it.
Because it doesn't know what champion you're going to play yet.
Right.
Right. So just saying, okay, you're 10 players, they're going to pick the champions, but it's more just the result at the end, right? It may shift or kind of have those more of a variance there based on the champions that you were then playing.
Hey, this is good, man. You're helping me. I think you're helping people understand.
And like I said, it's a really
complicated.
It's a very big system. It's something we're working on for over a decade now.
Right.
It's something that always will have those kind of bits and pieces there. And it's also important to note, I see this actually in the community a lot, we actually don't have our rating exposed anywhere. So if you're going to any kind of third-party areas or places where you might see comparisons of ratings or ELOs or matchmakings, none of those are actually our numbers. Those are usually proprietary numbers built by third-party sites or kind
based
of places
on how
where you can
they
see,
measure it and how they calculate
Which
players'
could be
performance.
very
it's like
different.
their proprietary version of it, but it's not ours.
So
right?
what you're saying is someone could, and this happens a lot in the actual community, someone will play a game and then they will go to a third-party site and check those people's rating and potentially get some misinformation there and say, based on this is what I can't believe the system did this, but the system didn't actually do that.
Correct.
Yeah, we hate to see that, but it is the nature of the business. We love the third-party sites.
Yeah.
They're great for the game. But if we develop our rank system to be more consistent, I think we'll get less of those frustrating elements of one says this, the other says this, and then just general anger.
I think that's a good myth buster right there because I honestly would have thought they were the same thing. I mean, just personally, if I hadn't gotten the information, I don't know if I would have distinguished it as a different, they're all very high-end numbers, and it's like, if you're just a guy who's not into that stuff, you just assume, okay, that's the
And they're cool to look at, right? Because they do create some kind of, there's several sites out there that do it, but they create kind of some interesting proprietary presentations that are separate from that, and then they kind of congeal it in their own ways to create interesting conclusions.
Right.
And I think those are all interesting as well, and I think it could be, under their system what it would look like, but obviously ours aren't sending out to the public, so you can only really see it on your profile.
Okay. I mean, so, this is a Q&A. We've talked about a few of these things, and we have the opportunity to open it up to questions for you all. And, of course, leave the designers here, Garrett and Rory, with the opportunity to kind of comment on anything that they feel is pertinent. But feel free right now because we don't have, we have only a little bit of time here to get your questions answered to @Paladins game, I believe, and make sure that we can read those. We got one big one here from Pecky's, though. He's in our production team. He says, can my ELO be reset? It's so high.
Why does Pecky's always lie, though?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Oh,
Doesn't make any sense.
I mean, I can put it to 0.
I heard he's never missed a shot.
It might be at 0.
That's the thing. Neither has Nick. Worst Canessa NA. Blake is throwing Ray under the bus here, so I don't know. We got some questions coming through, guys. But I mean, in general, we talked about the 25, maybe 25 games or so, extending some of the time. I mean, that's just a number that I threw out there. But you said 6 games and maybe you could be best EV and never play again. The thought process is now kind of leaning towards maybe there's extending that amount of games to play to be getting on that board.
That's a pretty easy win in terms of as we get a lot more players, as our standings kind of build up. It's a higher standard we'll set, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah, absolutely. We have one that's getting ready for it. Can we get our casual MMR visible on our profile?
We are actually pretty excited to work on some profile improvements and upgrades there. It's something that's not coming in the really short near term, but
Okay.
it's something that we actually have started taking a look at, especially with titles coming in the game. You see that our profiles are getting better and better with every patch. But displaying that stuff and then giving you more ways to kind of show off how high you've climbed, the pieces you have there is definitely on the horizon.
It's so interesting that we're even doing, as we wait for some of the questions to come in. It's interesting because there aren't a lot of communities who have multiple games and they're so competitive oriented, right? I mean, you see a lot of different studios with a lot of different kind of, motives, but this is a huge topic for our game specifically. We have such a competitive kind of mind frame and state. It's just, I don't know a lot of people who would have created this kind of Q&A, and it just shows you guys are passionate about changing it. The time frame, is there any kind of ballpark in your thinking, maybe putting some of these changes into effect? I know you said maybe waiting for a specific patch. What can people expect on the outside looking at some of these new implementations?
Depending on the feedback we get, right, over the next kind of few days, based on this talk and kind of think pieces there, there are some things that we can do in the short term, right?
Okay.
Like kind of separating some of those pieces out. I don't think it's too far away, right? We want to make sure we make the right change at the right time to kind of get those pieces there, and then when we feel it's ready, we can do a reset at that time as well. But really, I just kind of want to get the conversation started so people can kind of get the feedback and thoughts on that, and really just kind of get down to the details.
Garrett, you play Paladins quite a bit on your free time. You play with Nick and I.
Yep.
Do you play ranked pretty much?
Yep.
And what's your kind of biggest quality of life thing here that you're excited about moving forward with the matchmaking?
Oh man. Well, as I have the privilege of being one of the individuals who sees behind the curtains and sees all the things. So there are a lot of specific things that we can improve on there. But overall, I think a lot of the easy improvements. I know from my ranked players right now in live, we have our issues where the first picks were for a time like not aligned, or currently you can't trade characters. So there's a lot of quality of life things that I really want to see fixed for you guys, and myself included.
Absolutely.
So that's a great place to start.
Absolutely there. It looks like we're getting a few questions ready to go, so see if we can swing through some of these as well while we have a few more minutes. Will Champion Elo be completely untied from account Elo when the rework happens? You guys going to touch on that, but
that's kind of what's on the table here, right? I think, and that's kind of what we're looking for feedback on. So if you guys have any thoughts or questions on that, feel free to let us know. But the idea there is that, do you guys see interest in having the champion rating affect the results of the match, right? So do you want to be able to say, okay, I'm playing a character I'm not as good at. Do I want to be able to have the chance to gain more or lose less? Or if I'm playing a really good character, do I want to make sure that, that's going to kind of win the game for me? And if I lose, I might lose more. Is that something you're interested in? Or do you feel that just having the account separated from all the players in the game, is that enough, right? Because the champions are so important and so crucial to the victory of the match. How you separate the match, the team composition. So there's a lot of pieces there.
Like if you load into a match and it's just Stoles and Droxus on the other team, and you were forced to last pick, like all the healers were taken, and you're like, oh, I somehow ended up with Grover, who I have that. It's like, do you guys as a user think you should be kind of like accounted for that at the end of the match, or is it just like, no, account Elo straight up, like maybe you have 10 other Masters characters but Grover was your gold? Like how do you guys see that? What was your feedback around that?
That's a really interesting question. Do you want to experience some of that? Sometimes it works in your favor, sometimes it can bite you, so it's part of the system. But people asking for as they respond to that here, I saw an interesting question. We've got one up here. I saw an interesting one as well. Bumrush Bill, he was asking one of the best he's going for the bum rush, guys.
Bill's a good guy.
Good old
Bill's a good guy.
Bill's a good
guy.
I like it, Bill. He said one of the best ways to increase competitive is to increase the player count in competitive. Do you guys have any goals, or
I mean, he's not wrong.
Yeah, and do you have any goals towards trying to increase the ability to get more players in our game into competitive?
We actually have a pretty high participation in ranked for Paladins right now. It's actually a good percentage of the players that are playing every day and queuing up for ranked. Now, obviously, we've mentioned before that we're planning to eventually have seasons for ranked, rewards, and more things to get you into ranked. But also, I think, and it's something that the piece of feedback we've gotten so much from the community is, something that could happen a lot sooner than that and potentially have a much more bigger impact for it is to kind of solve some of these questions around what affects the match result, how do you climb, how much rating you get when you win or lose, and those kind of pieces. So we feel that that's the most important thing that the community has kind of given us. And then getting that first kind of settle down where we all feel like it's at a good spot, then the rewards coming in, which just even make it even better.
Right. And I mean, you guys have stats to go off of that with the high participation. You know, people are asking here, does that mean that your matches should then take 2 minutes? You know, some people have said that, you know, sometimes I don't play ranked because I feel like it takes a little while, a little longer than casual. I'd rather just get a game in and, you know, not necessarily wait for better competition. Is that a system of, is that a result of still having high players? Would that improve if you had more players playing? How does that work? Because I think that's a legitimate kind of, you know, conversation, because the numbers do support that there are a lot of people playing ranked.
Absolutely. I mean, more players will definitely help.
Right.
And once we kind of hash out the system, introduce rewards, as a company, this is something we've done with Smite. Like ranked rewards in Smite are awesome. Like they do some really cool things, even integration with esports and stuff.
Oh yeah.
So we're looking forward to that. But yes, more people will help. As far as queue times are concerned, whether or not the amount of people is more people around your skill bracket is relative to who's queuing at any one time.
Right.
But just as again, if more people will always help.
Yeah.
So
exactly. Okay. So the other thing is another question: is there any consideration of moving to different account-wide tiers? So like gold, platinum.
So
I guess
you're
adjusting.
Not,
Yes.
Yeah.
We do have account rating, obviously, that's kind of displayed on your profile, and there are account leaderboards in the game now. So there's definitely consideration for kind of adding those divisions to the account rating themselves.
Okay.
We do feel that it's really interesting to be able to do it for the champions, but I think an extension that would be pretty cool that we'd like to work on would be the account one. So.
Yeah. And then just in that specific leaderboard, kind of having that visibility there. So pros and cons, someone asking about that, pros and cons of champion selection before the match.
Ooh, that's a fun one. It's
a big question too.
We talked about it a lot in the very beginning, right? Because there's almost two schools of thought, right?
Right.
There's an office joke in there somewhere. But do you want to be able to select the champion before the match or during the match? Some of the bigger downsides of choosing the champion before the match is you actually do have to wait a little longer.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's just this guy's playing Barrack,
potentially a lot longer.
Potentially a lot longer. You have to think about. Do we have a system that says, do we force a meta? Like, do we say that there has to be one of each role and then 2 damage, right? Do we have to force that and wait for that many people to get in queue?
Right.
Do we not force it? Is it okay if there's a team comp that comes around that has no support on it?
Right.
Right. So like when you're choosing the champions with no contextual information on who you're going to get paired with, right? There's a lot of questions around, since you can't make the impromptu decision during the match, blah, blah, okay, you pick front line. Okay, you can't play support, so I'll play support.
Right.
You play damage, you play flank, right? That kind of thing. That goes away, and so there's actually a longer waiting process, and then a lot of questions around it. What kind of meta do we force when you queue up by yourself or with someone else, right?
Really interesting stuff too. I mean, there's information to be gleaned by going through the process of actually counter picking and picking, since counters are so important in our game. A lot of champions either gain a ton of viability or lose a ton based on who's being played on the enemy team.
Totally.
And with more champions
and based on the map too, right?
Oh yeah.
When you queue up, you wouldn't know what map it was, but if it's something that's really tight and clean, I want to play Inara.
Exactly.
If it's a big open map, I want to play Kinessa, but if not, I'll play Cassie, right? And all that contextual information goes away when you queue before.
Yeah. With our game, I think that could be tough, but interesting thought as well.
It's a fun question.
Yeah. All flankers meta, somebody's saying. Just force only flankers.
Everyone's all flankers.
I'd like that as a match of the day. That'd be fun.
That'd be cool.
I'd be down.
Cool.
Is there any way we can add a hover function over a champion you're desiring to play? So maybe this would be like in between your
that'd be a cool thing to add.
That'd be a dope feature.
Yeah.
For sure.
Okay.
A very nice quality of life thing.
We'll take a mental note.
Okay. There's a lot of things. Remember, guys, we actually have only, I believe, 5 minutes left in the Q&A. So make sure you get your questions in and get them rolling as soon as possible to @Paladins game. Can we get visibility on other players' teammates' MMR? You said that the actual stats aren't revealed. The third-party sites are making their own evaluations of it. Is there a way for people to be able to see the actual MMR of the people they're playing against?
Potentially, yeah. I think that comes down to, that is the meat and bones, right?
Yeah.
Depending on how we set up and rework kind of some of the ranked system features and the presentations there, we could, start showing that, and that's something that we'd be curious to hear your thoughts on.
This is an interesting question. When do we plan to implement champion bans in ranked? I know this is a big thing that we've talked about in competitive, because we're probably nearing the point where, it's getting close to where we might want to look at that. But in ranked, do you see that being kind of on the same track, a little bit different? What's the champion number?
They're probably closely related for sure.
Yeah.
Versus when you see it in competitive and when you see it in ranked.
Mm-hmm.
As far as implementation is concerned, we don't have a specific date for it.
Okay.
But it's always the question of the threshold of characters needed to reach this point, and then what it actually does to a game with some very, very strong counters, a very hard counter system built into the in-match purchases, and how that affects the games. But yes, we are definitely considering it.
Really comes down to appetite, right? So I think it's something that we probably could have put in by now if it was being asked for, but it's actually currently, as far as we hear, not being asked for, at least on the esports side, the guys you're working on, and then on the competitive side and ranked side, largely just because the amount of champions we have, right? When we get 35 or 40 champions in the game, it starts to become, okay, well, now we'll need 1 or 2 bans to kind of clean that up. But when you're at 24, 25, especially with a 4 archetype system and then the way the items work, there hasn't really been a big ask for let us ban at least 1 champion, right? Because that's something to constantly think about for those of you who are very competitive minded. I imagine you are, since you're here right now. But just kind of think about what would the game look like if you could ban 1 champion every single game on each team, right? Who would you ban? What would that match look like? And is that something that's interesting now, or is it something that you're looking for 10 champions from now?
Very, very interesting.
I would just ban Lex because it looks like Rain Day.
It looks exactly, man. And
every time I ban Lex,
we know
Rain
dangerous.
Day actually gets a little bit smaller, and then it just eventually he poofs.
Every time Lex gets a kill, I get a little bit stronger inside, man.
Yeah, that's what it is.
I get a little bit smarter. I feed off of that.
Yep, it's the energy.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's why we gave him an execute.
Bam, Lex. Stop it, chat. So somebody says, I have 4.9K rating with Maeve, but 3.7K account rating. With the current system, does this give me an advantage when I play Maeve?
Full disclosure, it likely does not.
Likely does not.
So I think, the fact that the champion rating is part of the end of match kind of calculation there to kind of include between account and champion, playing your best character means that you're more likely to win. Right. And the system will says, okay, yeah, you're playing your best character, you're probably going to win. And so, you have a chance that you'd have more of a wild swing there, right? So if you're playing a character that's about average or a character a bit lower, it'll be a little bit safer for you. But it also means you're not going to win as much because you're playing a character you're not that good at, right? So it tries to calculate it, and it's a very small percentage, right? You're not going to see a big piece there, but swings, that contributes as to why sometimes players will see swings, dramatic swings, a little bit. They're on the larger side. They're not, super crazy, but it definitely feels like there's a disparity there.
It's not a soap opera drama swing right there.
No, it's not.
Okay, it's a little bit less.
More like a less.
A teen dramedy there. Is matchmaking the same across casual, ranked, and PvE?
Yes, it's the same system that's being applied to different queues. So it really just comes down to who's in queue at that time and who's doing that. PvE doesn't, right? I guess it kind of does. No, it does. It does, because if you queue by yourself, it'll still find 4 players that are in your skill range to do that there. But they all get applied to different queues for different reasons, and then you'll have kind of deviations for a casual or a ranked version.
Couple more questions. We're actually running out of time. Anything that you see you want to kind of touch on here, or have we kind of covered it for now?
Do we have like a wrap it up box? We should get can we get a wrap it up box?
You could use this as like wrapping paper if you want,
but
I'm really bad at wrapping stuff though. So is that enough to wrap up the show?
What could this be?
I don't know. Dry bear flavor. Is that your new drink product?
This ranked tiers.
Okay, I like it.
Or no, this is
you're gold, dude.
This is Pallet Juice.
Pallet Juice.
Yeah.
Trademark that, man.
Does a body good.
It comes with 100 milligrams.
That's your pre-workout, Garrett.
Of Groculites.
Groculites.
Groculites, yeah.
Oh god.
It prevents overheating. I don't know where I'm going with this.
Does it let you get stronger?
It does. It does. Yeah.
That's
it really
excellent.
does.
Excellent. When's the next patch preview, man?
Yes.
Yes, I love it.
Next week.
Next week.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
And we have some cool things like
We
maybe
do.
a new.
Oh, we got some cool things.
Can we?
That's when
stuff.
you're gonna want to see, guys.
Well, last patch didn't have a champion, right?
Oh, that
So
did
I
happen.
wonder.
So
If,
does that mean that we have 2 more champions back to back coming up?
are you serious? You guys gonna make me intro 2 new champions 2 times in a row?
I know it hurts you. It hurts you
Who
so
knows?
much. I can see
Can we
the
just
pain.
have Lex always be the last champion that's been introduced?
Yeah, we can actually.
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
I like. Oh.
No.
Yeah, yeah, we can. We'll just turn them off and re-release them
Ruining-
after every champion, and then turn them off again.
I like that. I don't
Yeah.
mind that.
You can't escape
Keep
him.
reintroducing
the
myself
law.
to the game. I'll be here. We got the Masters Land this weekend as well. You can catch all your boys
Yeah.
casting it. Myself, Hira's Pretty Hair, Hira's Vox. We've got I Hold Shift in the building. All productions getting nice and ready. The pros are here. We got Bitey standing behind us.
Right over there.
Wi-Fi talking trash about plebs, as he always does.
Yes, he does.
And it's going to be an exciting weekend for us. You guys going to stop by?
We'll be there.
Oh yeah,
You'll be there.
definitely.
We'll be there.
So we'll try
Yes.
and catch some sneak photos of you guys, some
Oh please.
paparazzi
Oh god.
in the crowd. I know.
Can I
It's
borrow
gonna-
your black hat and just kind
Nope.
of, Chris Evans it and just
Nope.
right there? No,
I'll be there.
Probably won't even fit my fat head.
I'll be using it while I cast, guys. Make sure to tune in 11 a.m. Eastern Time tomorrow for the Masters Land on Paladins game. And as always, thank you guys for watching. Remember to never give up, never stop gaming, and we'll see you all in the realm.
and we never